comments.
Yeah, happy to read those into the record for you, Mr. Chairman. First comment was received on Monday, November 1st, from John Doring, 1324 West Featherwood Drive, Dunlap. His comments are as follows. I am not pleased with the proposed County Board District 15. I do not wish to have the composition of this County Board District dilute my interests by combining unincorporated areas with areas in the city of Peoria. The issues of importance to residents outside the city of Peoria are often diametrically opposite of those within the corporate limits. There is plenty of history of this, especially in Medina Township, that should not be ignored. I respectfully ask the committee to consider the city limits as a natural boundary in creating county board districts. Comment number 2 was received on November 3rd from Aaron Callahan. Hello, will the proposed changes to the district map have an impact on schools? If so, how and where do we find this corresponding information as we view the proposed redistricting map? We presently reside in a Dunlap school district. Is it possible these changes will switch us to Peoria District 150 or a Brimfield-Kickapoo district? Thank you, Aaron Callahan.
Scott, before you continue, for the record, can you just give the response for that?
Sure. Happy to, Mr. Dillon. I personally responded via email to Ms. Callahan and informed her that the county board redistricting process has absolutely no impact on existing district boundaries of school districts. They are separate units of government, and although very infrequent, there is a process for which an individual piece of property could move from one district to the other. It typically involves a petition process and working out specifics with the two school districts involved. I did receive a reply thanking me for the feedback and for the information. The third comment was received on November 4th from David Tuttle of 18725 West Farmington Road, Travola, Illinois. David's comments are, I think the version 2 map is better. Thank you. The fourth and final comment was received from Conrad Stinnett on November 4th. Greetings from the West Bluff Council, a proactive community organization comprised of the 8 great West Bluff neighborhood associations, the West Main Street Merchants Association, and Bradley University. Our longtime policy on redistricting is in support of our neighborhoods staying together in one district. Your current plan does not align with that goal. Please work with us to support our plan. And Mr. Chairman, I know Mr. Dillon contacted Mr. Stinnett to provide a response, and I'm sure Mr. Dillon will be willing to share what that response was with the committee.
Go ahead, Mr. Dillon.
So I did talk to Mr. Stinnett about his concerns, and I knew the answer, but I did confer with Alan beforehand, and Mr. Stinnett shared with him that the West Bluff had lost the largest population in the county, over 500 alone in the Bradley University area. Then Alan, there was 2 other neighborhood associations that had lost each about 200 and 250 each. So the one current standard that we had for the board was that we didn't draw sitting members out of their districts, and that doing so with the population losses in what we've typically referred to as heritage neighborhoods around here, that it gets a little harder to draw maps as you had to do. And as we condensed one in the downtown area, and then we have a new one out north. It was a good conversation. I left him my cell phone, said I'm happy to talk to him however if he needs to. So tried to explain that. It was a good conversation, I think, and I believe he understood where the map making process was coming from, and that's basically somewhat the same answer to the first email that Scott read into the record. Alan, is it 15 or 16 districts, or I think it was 16 last time, how many districts, since basically a majority of our population resides in the city of Peoria, that to make these maps of average a little over 10,000 people, you almost have to touch some part of the city.
You do. I can calculate what it is now and what it isn't. It's especially when you start with, you know, obviously Peoria Heights isn't big enough itself. It's astounding. And we did use the city, try to use city boundaries where, so, you know, over here in the boundaries between like District 12 and District 7, or District 8 and District 12, some of those are, and you get part of the complication. People can say you should use the city boundary. Well, the city, if you flip on in the redistricting tool the city municipal boundaries, it definitely looks like someone taking a drunken walk, because they don't do it by census block, they do it by parcel. And so you can have big gaps and circles around, like where Weaver Ridge is between it and then District 8. There's a whole gap that's unincorporated. Well, you can't not put that in with things. But we did try to use it. I mentioned those. Also up District 13, try to do that with Chillicothe District to keep kind of Medina versus the city. But the other thing, remember, if the city keeps annexing property, you know, what we do today is not going to do it. But we did try to, and I believe, you know, the area that you're talking about with the one comment about following the city, we already were crossing into the city and doing it. I mean, even the rural district gets up and gets some of this stuff at the very, very northern part of the city. Does that answer your question, Mr. Dillon? For the record? Yeah.
And we have the two board members here that were this second rendering of districts for Brian and Matt. Do you have any comments, either of you, on the new map? Or, Good, good. Brian?
As I said 2 weeks ago when the first map was unveiled, it doesn't matter to me where you put me, and I'm happy to represent anyone, but this does make more sense as far as, you know, the geographical aspect and as far as the northern part of the county and the western part of the county. And regarding Mr. Doring's public comment, he's been one of my constituents ever since I've been on the board, and I'm not sure, with the way the population has been moving to the north, that you could have included the same areas in my district anymore. I mean, I've always represented Lake of the Woods and then Oak Brook and Deer Brook and Ravenswood, and that's where it's stopped. But with the way the population has moved, I'm not sure that you could have included them in without taking a large section of the rural area out there in the southwest part of my district. So that would be my comments with regarding to his questions.
Mr. Fennell.
Yes, sir.
And so I just want to, part of the reason behind changing that, and I really do appreciate Alan's time and effort that he's put into doing this all for, just want to make sure everybody understands too, this has been a volunteer project for him, that there's been no monetary for Alan to do any of this. And I'd be remiss not to mention Mr. Morris, who also had the license agreement. So Matt Windish brought up some good points. He called me and Mr. Fennell and talked about the value of school districts, and that this was crossing over through school districts, so that if, you know, his kids went to Brimfield, Elmwood, that he wouldn't even represent certain school districts that the kids in the neighborhood go through. So talked to me and Mr. Fennell. Me and Mr. Fennell asked Alan to draw up a map 2 version which, as you see today, which would be the one that I think we'll probably recommend at our next meeting going forward, if that would be the consensus of this redistricting committee.
Thank you. Kind of open it up to the floor. Any other, Jennifer, do you have any comments? Anyone else in the room have comments? Linda?
I guess the only thing I would say is, having watched redistricting, not of the county board, but other redistricting over 30 years, I think sometimes people don't understand that it's actually to their advantage to have more than one person representing an area. In other words, it's to their advantage, perhaps, to have 5 people who represent rural Peoria County instead of 2 or 3. But for some reason, that seems to be a hard thing for people to understand.
Well, I think we have probably close to 5. Jennifer does, Paul, myself, Brian, Matt. I don't know, anyone else that would fall more into the rural area, strong rural area? That's pretty much 5, so that's
But what I'm responding to is a person who says the rural area has nothing in common with the incorporated area. And what I would say is that I think that most areas profit from having more people who are interested in their issues than having fewer. I just picked the number 5.
yeah. Plus, it's not we against them. It's
Right.
We're all one county, and
Exactly.
we get the good with the extra money coming in from the commerce and everything in the community, or in the in the city area. So we can't discount that and say,
Correct.
it all plays together to make one county, and we need to look at it that way.
Right.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if there are any comments from the committee members, I would like to bring to the committee's attention Josh Thompson and Jared Fox from IT, which is our GIS team, provided the technical assistance that Mr. Mayor, Mr. Morris may have needed throughout the process. Josh is sitting over here on my left in the audience. Next Wednesday is GIS Day, which is it's a national and an international day where the GIS community recognizes things that it has accomplished. And one thing that we're going to do this year is we'll post next Wednesday on the county's website something called an ARC story, which is using the GIS software that we have to tell a story about Redistricting 101. And I asked Alan to put the URL up on the screen. The website, this is not live yet. It'll be posted next Wednesday, but we've got a couple of short YouTube videos embedded that explain redistricting and the process and its history here in Peoria County, and then how Alan and Stephen used the software to create the proposed map. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention.
So was that narrative going to play now? No. Oh, okay. I thought maybe you're going to. Okay. I thought you were giving us a prelude to what.
I scrolled through, but I didn't play the YouTube videos.
Okay. Thank you.
This is the first time I'm seeing it, so it's pretty cool.
Okay. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Mr. Dillon.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, Mr. Fennell, but couple things just for the record so everybody knows. The version 2 would be open for another almost 2 weeks, And we will be looking at the 30th, holding after exec budget at 3:30. Another redistricting committee where this would actually be on as a amendment on there to be a resolution to be submitted, and then at 4 o'clock we will hold a full county board meeting to solely vote on this as the one piece of legislation that we have. So there will be 2 more meetings that would allow for public comment or questions, but basically there's really these next 2 weeks is really the time period where the committee could make any final recommendations if we were going to approve it in November. And then just so that everybody understands that, and then lastly, Mr. Fennell, I know it's the chair's prerogative. We don't have a ton of public here, but we do have Lori and Jim here, that I would ask if there was take a second, if there was anybody that wanted a public comment read into the record, that we would allow for the public's comment also.
Absolutely. Would anyone like to address the board? Yeah. Yes, come on forward. There's a mic right there.
Okay. I did have a question. How does this affect the elections? Are you all, since you set it up so that it doesn't affect anyone's count lines, I guess, do you all still have to run again?
Don't have to run. No, it's by choice. You don't
Yeah.
have to run.
But yes, all 18 districts are up for election. Half of them will be for a 2-year term, and half of them will be for a 4-year term. But all 18 are up for election in 2022.
And you won't know whether it's a 2-year or 4-year until the election's over, and then we flip a coin. Is that what we did last time? It's to get them back on the cycle,
Right.
so we aren't all.
So, board members will run for either a staggered term of 2 years, 4 years, 4 years through the rest of the decade, or they'll run a stagger of 4 years, 4 years, 2 years for the rest of the decade till the next redistricting and process after the next decennial census. How the county board decides that is either a flip of the coin or some other random choice. Historically, it's been divided by even numbered districts and odd numbered districts. So once the random act of deciding which is which, all of the odd numbered districts will be in one of those 2 patterns, 2-4-4 or 4-4-2, and the other districts will be in the opposite pattern. So the board will need to determine that so that when you actually file your petitions, you'll know, and any candidate running for county board will know whether or not they're running for a 2-year term or a 4-year term.
I'm pulling it up in the county's code. It's done afterwards, and I think there's a bit of discretion. I was going to pull up the exact language, but Mr. Fennell's absolutely correct. You don't know when you're running whether you'll have a 2-year or a 4-year term. But to your basic question, everybody has to run, and everybody has to run in the new districts so that you're representing the same number of people.
And does this affect any of the rules? Is anything being changed with regards to when people have to file, so forth and so on, when the elections happen moving forward?
So it does not affect any of that because that's the election code that's set by the General Assembly. So, and I'm guessing based on your level of interest showing up here that you know that they already had changed it so that instead of the primary next year being in March, it's going to be in June. So same time that everybody else would be filing for that, starting petitions in January, filing in March, and then being on the primary ballot in June, and then the general election doesn't change in November.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could you explain to her regarding the 2 districts in this southern, downtown area, and how the
Sure.
one?
I mean, the easiest thing is just to, well, actually, I'll just pop open. Where did it go again? you have to adjust all the boundaries so that you have very close to the same number of people in each district. And as you can see, I kind of went over to a presentation 2 weeks ago to the committee. The GIS folks put this together. This is the census tracts in Peoria County, and it's set up so red is population decline and green is growth. And you can see that with a few small exceptions like the warehouse district downtown, almost everywhere in the county is losing population except this area around, I call it the Route 6 corridor, which is why we put the new district there. And then basically the largest population losses are right in through here, as you can see. Do you need more?
I was here at the committee meeting.
Oh, okay. Then you heard me say it all once in greater detail.
Thank you, Alan. That's great.
Yep.
But we did end up combining 2 people in one district, and you were aware of that. Okay. I think that's what Brian was alluding to. Okay. Just the 4 members that we have on this board, myself, if you have any hesitancy, let me know. Otherwise, we will continue with this on the path for the next meeting. And Sharon, Linda, Mr. Dillon.
I know I mentioned it once earlier today, but I can't thank Alan and Stephen to their service for doing this enough. I did receive a call from a former chairman of another county, a large county in Illinois, who saw that we were on the redistricting here, wanting to know how it's done here. And they explained to me how it's done where they're from. And we are very blessed to have 2 smart lawyers that could get along and put politics aside and draw a fair map. I want to mind 2 people from opposite parties that drew what I believe is a fair map together. And that wouldn't be possible in this county without, I know he lives in Sagamore now, but we do miss him here in Peoria and his service to the county board. And they could have both easily told us, no, figure it out. I'm done with my service here. And mind you, Alan, this is a day off for him as an employee of the state, and he still drove to Peoria to come present this so that it could be presented in a clear way for the public and for the board. So I can't thank you and Stephen enough, Mr. Fennell's leadership on this to get us where we're at today. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you again. Okay. Miscellaneous. Is there any miscellaneous? If not, we'll adjourn. Thank you.